It's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and it's one of our In the Hot Seat specials that we normally do on a Tuesday, but we've had a few recently. But it's the first time I've actually done an interview where it's actually live with the individual in the same room. Rich is actually here, and not looking at us through screen, so this is a bit of a first. So we're going to go through a bit of Richard's time, his career, get a feeling for his journey, and I'm going to talk about where we are today, which is Steamhouse, which is part of BCU. So, Richard, start.
Sorry.
You didn't do A levels or university then?
No, I left school at 16. We had, I'll never forget, I went to a comprehensive school in Shirley. We had this guy from this stainless steel company in Smethwick come over and talking about something called a commercial apprenticeship. So I sort of opted to do that in 1985 when I was 16.
So was that like a 3-year program, or was it a particular period of time for that apprenticeship?
It was a 4-year program, something I never thought I'd be into. I remember when I did the one thing I wanted to do as a youngster, and a job I wanted was to work in a bank, and I did a week's work experience at one of the high street banks in Shirley, and I hated it. I was a gobby little 16-year-old, and it was just too quiet for me.
Well, somebody's just saying that the audio is not very good. Do you want to pull that closer? Is that a bit better, the audio? I'd say, I think it was Amos, I think, was saying that the audio wasn't very good. Is that any better? So I'll wait for you to put a comment in there. So we're only hearing what we can hear locally, so I'm not sure if the audio is any better. It's the first time we've done it this way, so yeah, I'm not sure if it's working the best it could be, but hopefully that's better. So carry on then, Richard.
Yeah, so I wanted to work in a bank, and it lasted about a week in my work experience, and I just didn't enjoy it. It was just too quiet for me, and this apprenticeship came along, and it really appealed to me. It was a commercial apprenticeship whereby you went through all of the departments within the company, and you also did the ONC in business studies, sort of 1 day a week, and the HNC in business studies, because I was always interested in business, but I didn't want to go full time into college. So it gave me the best of both worlds, and started in 1985, and it was a bit of a slog, really. It was 2 buses over to Smethwick, sort of thing, and they were tough times. It was in 1985. It was times of the Handsworth riots, and it was literally half a mile from Handsworth where we were. So it's quite interesting times, really. But I did that, and I loved it. I grew up quickly. I was in a warehouse at 8 o'clock in the morning, where we used to sort of lug huge and heavy stainless steel pipes around, and it was on a cold day, the pipes would stick to your hands. It was our graft sort of thing, but it grew me up quite quickly. They didn't take any prisoners. They were sort of, tough black country workers who thought, a kid from Solihull. I was often the butt of the jokes, but I sort of learned quick, and I loved it. And I went around all of the sort of departments there. Was rubbish on the sort of engineering side, which was probably what I went into first, but ended up on the sort of sales side, the commercial side, and I was in that industry for for 15 years.
So did you carry on in the same business, or did you change businesses during that time?
I changed businesses. So it's a business where, within stainless steel stockholding, you were headhunted really. So I went, I think about 3 companies I went to in those 15 years. To try and bet myself, really. Ended up as national sales manager of a quite a big stainless steel company, sort of £20 million turnover, where we supplied different industries: petrochemical, automotive, leisure, aerospace.
Was this all prefabricated components, like say tubes and things like that, or was it raw materials as well?
It was just sort of prefabricated, so it was just pure materials. So it was tube, pipe, fittings, flanges, sheet and plate, bar.
Because I'll tell you a little bit of my early days. I worked at Steamhouse Laboratories at Sheffield, which is part of Sheffield Steel. And, this was when I was about 16, 17 doing my A-levels. And we were working on what we call anti-piping. So helping out with the people that are doing it full time, but looking to, when you've got a 6-ton ingot, so you got all that steel drops in. That's the old way of it. Now most things continuous casting these days, or concast. But then they used to dump a load of steel into an ingot and leave it to cool. What happened is the outer side would cool faster than the inside. It would drop in. And when you roll it, that was what we called a pipe, because it had a crack down the middle. Now you used to have to cut it off each time. So it was a bit of a challenge for them. So, I remember a little bit about steel making. I remember going and watching teaming at Stocksbridge Works.
Yeah,
that is quite scary to see when they're pouring molten metal into things. And sometimes when they open the cupola, it's blocked, and they have to put an oxygen lance in to actually blow it open. Amazing to see. But
it was amazing when you saw Sheffield. I was going to say, Lee, it changed so much in the time I was there. Meadowhall came, and it was British Steel, then it was Avesta, then it was something else, and you could see all of the stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Templeborough, there's masses of steelworks, but there's nothing out of it. I think there's one factory now. Yeah, it's changed dramatically,
hugely,
hasn't it?
Absolutely hugely, sort of thing.
So what did that 15 years give you then? So you understood, the value of work, because you've been in there, lifting cold steel early in the morning. You'd learned the commercial aspects of business within that. So what other things do you think that 15 years gave you?
It's an interesting question, that, Lee. I was a good salesperson. So I think what we tend to do in this country is promote good salespeople into sales managers, and I wasn't a great sales manager when I started, but I sort of worked at it really. And the HNC that I did taught me a little bit about business, but I was confident in that time. I knew the product, and I think that's important. If you know the product, whilst I wasn't a hugely technical person, I knew exactly what the product was all about, sort of thing. And I can still bore people about 304 and 316 and marstenitic and automatic stainless. So I got to understand the product really, sort of thing. I mean, my values are very simple. I was taught, my dad always taught me to turn up on time and make sure that the time you were at work, you just gave your best. And that sounds a bit corny, but it's so true.
Yeah, very true. But if you think about it, to be a good salesperson, you've got to be confident in the product. So if you've got a good understanding of the product, you're going to be more confident when you come across to your potential customer as well, that you understand what you're talking about. And I think that's one of the biggest things. And it's quite interesting you say about moving from being a commercial salesperson to a sales manager was a challenge. It's like being an athlete, really, isn't it? You're a really good athlete, but you may be a really poor coach, because you don't actually know what you're doing that's good. So how do you actually tell another athlete how to do better if you don't actually understand it yourself? You're just actually achieving something without actually understanding it. So a lot of people do find it a real challenge when they move from that job of doing to that management side of it, because they don't really understand why it's working. And it's a good thing you'd got that HNC background in business and commercial, to understand a bit more about how it worked as well.
I think that's a really good comment, Lee. And I think with, when you get to that sort of stage in life, it's all about networking and connecting and putting the effort into supporting the people that work for you. Lee, you're superb at that. I've only known you for sort of, since May, really, since the Steamhouse opened, and you've already connected me to dozens of people. You've helped our young entrepreneurs here, and I think that's what I try to do within my business life is try and support people.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, because sales is difficult.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you're selling, sort of thing, and. But it doesn't need to be. I think if you know, as I said earlier, if you know the product, you know the market, you're given the freedom to be yourself when you're selling. I think it's a great career, and I loved it. I love being in it.
I think networking is really important in everything you do, because it gives you a bigger team, more experience, more skills, you know, across a wider group of people. And it doesn't need to be just inside your own business. And a lot of people seem to think that all you do is you go to people internally within your own business. But actually, you're better to go outside and find people in other areas, especially areas that are outside of your business's, you know, key skills. So, you know, it's a really important thing to actually expand your network, and a lot of people are doing that these days, because it's important to, you know, to be able to grow that, because there's more chance of selling to someone you know through like a warm introduction through a network than there is to go and cold call someone, sending emails out and they're just getting no response. So, you know, building relationships, I think, is the best way to do it anyway. So 15 years, what happened next?
I think I had a bit of a midlife crisis. Well, I did have a midlife crisis, Lee. I woke up one day and I had a very comfortable life. I got my own house and had a nice company BMW. And I just woke up one day and I thought, I'm just bored of this. I can't do it anymore. That was the year 2000 or 1999. And I remember I was at my mum and dad's house having a bit of tea with them. And do you remember there was a magazine called The Lady?
Yes.
It was a magazine, and my mum was reading it, and I saw this advert for a company called French Life Holidays, and they advertised something called a courier, where you basically went over to Brittany in the summer season from sort of March through to September, October, and you cleaned mobile homes on holiday parks, and you welcome guests in and you told them a bit about the area. So I ended up sort of getting on a coach and going over to Brittany, left my sort of a lodger in a house and left my car over here and went in a minibus over to Brittany.
Were you single at the time?
Yeah, I was single at the time, which I don't think I'd have been allowed to go otherwise.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seemed a strange job to go and do if you weren't single at the time. So how long did you do that? Just one season, or did you do it further than that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where it sort of got quite interesting. Really, I'll never forget at the interview for that job that a guy called Cliff Worley was interviewing him. I'll never forget, and he said, "You're the first person who's prepared to take an 80% pay cut for a job," sort of thing, because I was earning 100 quid a week when I went over to France. It was just enough sort of money to see me, but I just needed a change, and I absolutely loved it over there. I went over to a site called Le Renolian in a place called Perros-Guirec in North Brittany, and it just, I know it sounds corny again, but it changed my life. I went over there and I made the effort to speak French. I made the effort to know all of the people working on this holiday park. And this holiday park was beautiful. It had 5 swimming pools, a supermarket, a nightclub, a bar, 3 or 4 restaurants. It was right on the coast. I was privileged to work there, really. And I did that for a year, and I'll never forget it. I was with the owner of the site, a gentleman called Marcel Lassault, who spoke very little French. So it was an interesting conversation, because spoke very little English. My French wasn't great, but I saw these mobile homes being towed off this site in France, and I said to Marcel, "What do you do with those mobile homes?" And he said, basically, they're a pain. I don't get any money for them, and I have to get one of these wide load convoy vehicles to get rid of them. So I said, "Well, what about if I bought them off you? How many have you got?" He said, 5. I said, "What would you sell them me for? And would you put them on a bit of your site, and I'll do them up and sell holidays to British holiday makers, really?" And he loved the idea. So I bought 5 mobile homes for like 1,500 quid each. That's all they were, 7.5 grand. And I did them up, sort of thing. And I got myself a little website and sold mobile home holidays to people in Britain. There's Key Camp or Eurocamp you might have heard of. We were very much like those, but much cheaper, really. And the mobiles weren't as nice, but they were functional. And interestingly, Marcel was delighted, because Brits spend lots of money in the bar.
Yes.
So he was quite pleased to get all the Brits over there. And I started with 5 mobiles that year. And I did quite well from it. You know, he guaranteed in France in August, any campsites overbooked by ×5. So he gave me bookings for 4 weeks of August for all of my mobiles, my 5 mobiles. So that was 20 bookings. I got some more bookings at sort of May Bank holiday, and I got some bookings in June. So I did quite well first year, enough to let me buy another 5 mobiles, and I grew the fleet to 40 mobiles in the end.
That's a good change, definitely increasing nearly tenfold, isn't it, from the original? So,
but it was just such an easy business model to buy these things quite cheaply. And when I was selling holidays for about £800 a week, you don't need many just to cover the 4 weeks.
Very entrepreneurial as well.
Yeah. I was lucky. I was I'd made friends, people who could site them. I had people who could sort of service the boilers, people who could repair things if they went wrong. So I made a lot of people who cut the grass for me on the emplacement. So I just had to get a website.
There's a lot more to it, isn't there, than you think, running something like that, a campsite effectively. There's all the services and everything like that. A lot of people think it just happens, naturally the grass, gets cut and all those things, but there's everything to do for it. So what happened after you got to 40? Was that a turning point for you, or did you carry on?
That was 2005, and the market had changed then. So the internet had caught on more, and people weren't booking with the middleman, because the campsite then was sort of taking bookings direct, where they weren't sort of, a lot of holidays then were the travel agents or Eurocamp or Keycamp sort of intermediaries. So I sold my mobiles to a company who used them for staff accommodation in the end sort of thing. And I met my now wife, who was working for me in France, and she lived in the southwest. So I ended up.
Is she French or English?
No, she's English, and that's debatable. She's from a place called Buckler, Monaco, in Devon.
Oh, okay.
So they don't speak like I do, you see.
No, definitely not.
So sometimes I thought she was French when I first met her. So I ended up going to Devon to work.
Yeah. And what did you do in Devon?
So I was when I first went there, it was a real risk to go. I'd done okay in my business, so I had a little bit of money to last me perhaps a year. But for 6 months, I really struggled, and I ended up mixing pasty mixture at Gingsters in Callington sort of thing for 3 or 4 months, until I got offered a job at Business Link, the sort of government advisory
The worst
service.
thing I ever did was sorting parsnips in an agricultural factory. So they came out from the fields and on conveyor belts and actually sorting through parsnips. Worst job I've ever done. Never do it again. And it was awful because the place was so cold. But they used to have these infrared heaters that heated you. The number of really bad headaches I had because the back of my neck was so warm with the heater, but then leant over doing these parsnips. Never do it again. But sometimes we have to do things, though, don't we, to keep things, the wolf from the door.
I think that's the thing, isn't it, Lee? We're doing lots of stuff now at BCU with new entrepreneurs, and we encourage them to not just sort of jump into the new venture, because it very rarely pays straight away, sort of thing. So it's important for them to work and get some experience. And I loved it at Gings. It was good fun. They looked after me. They were a good employer, sort of thing. And
you get free pasties for lunch.
Do you know what? There's a little shop there, and all of the rejects they used to sell you very cheaply. So you get 24 pasties for less than £5.
Oh, there you go.
So entrepreneur used to flog them around our local area as well, sort of thing.
So the spirit's still with you.
The spirit was still there. That's right.
So what happened after Ginsters then? So did you stay down in Devon and work there, or did you move back?
Stayed in Devon. My house is still there in a place called Tavistock. I worked for Business Link then, which was great. So I supported. So Business Link
was part of the what they call them now, the job centres, isn't it?
It's part of. It was a
link between the two.
It was more of a government appointed sort of organisation to support businesses, really, on lots of different aspects, on employment, on HR, on training. So I worked on the sort of training and development side there. Worked there for about 4 or 5 years, and then I went and became head of commercial and marketing for a dairy called Langage Farm, who were a dairy in Devon.
That's a bit of a change.
Real change sort of thing, from a sort of, a city boy like me, suddenly sort of working on, literally it was a working farm with 280 Jersey cows. But we made, we got this Jersey milk and we added real value to it. We made clotted cream and yogurts and soft cheese and ice cream, and started selling to sort of small shops there. But we then got into the multiples, the Tesco's and Morrison's, and took the business to about 5 million sales.
That's
sort of
good.
thing.
That's
Got Tesco contract for clotted cream for 40,000 pots a week.
Yeah, because it's a real challenge for dairy farmers, wasn't it? Because the price of milk was being driven down by a lot of the supermarkets, to the point where it wasn't even profitable to actually have a dairy herd. But if they then diversified into products themselves, like you say, cheeses, yogurts, things like that, that's when it changed. But again, it's whether they had the experience or could buy in the experience to be able to achieve that.
That's spot on, Lee. And you need to add value to your products. And clotted cream, for example, there was only one business at the time, Rodders, who produced clotted cream, and they had the whole market to themselves. So we came in as a competitor, and the Devon and Cornwall thing, and jam first and cream first, we sort of made a bit of a play on that, because loads of Devon sort of demographic didn't particularly want Cornish clotted cream, and vice versa. So we became a Devon manufacturer of clotted cream. It was like that. I remember we had a bit of a sort of an eat-off on the little ferry that goes across from Tor Point to Cornwall, and it was Langage Farm against Rodders, a taste sort of competition, which of course we won, sort of thing.
Of course.
So I think what I'm trying to say is that we went into markets where the competition wasn't so fierce. We started with ice cream, but that was really fierce. You've got 10, 20 sort of ice cream manufacturers in Devon, but in Devon and Cornwall. But at the time in clotted cream, there was only a company called Rodders, a company called Trewithen now, and ourselves. So we went into the market where there was little competition, really.
Yeah. And cheese is a big thing these days, isn't it? A lot more people eating cheese than there used to be, especially locally produced cheeses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we made sort of soft cheese, and then we made sort of a real good cottage cheese as well. Sort of thing. So lots of different sort of products, and then yogurts, and the business now, their primary sort of customer now is Aldi and Lidl for yogurts in glass.
I've seen those.
Them sort of thing. They're made at Langage Farm. Yeah, they're beautiful.
That's really good. I've had them as well.
Yeah, they're nice. They're good,
especially the blueberry one.
Yeah, that's nice. That's one of the best ones. Yeah, I like the raspberry myself. But there you go.
So, where did you start then? What was the turnover when you went there? You said it was 5 million when you left?
3 million. I was there sort of 3 years, and it went to 5 million. So we got net profit up a little bit. Yeah. And it got competitive. The supermarkets and multiples tend to drive prices down. Yeah. But we ended up taking 40 more staff on the sort of back of a big contract with Tesco. Sort of thing.
Working with those type of organisation, is cash flow a challenge though as well? Because they don't want to pay quickly, do they?
Really good sort of point, and something we're running a hatchery, which we'll perhaps talk about later. But I was trying to explain cash flow, and the best way I could explain it was we used to deal with supermarket chains who wouldn't pay you for 90 days.
Yeah, so that's common, isn't it?
Common, and sometimes you were waiting 120 days, 6 months before you got paid. So what we did, we made sure that the supermarkets acknowledged that our invoices were correct. We made the supermarkets email us to say that they'd pay us on a certain date, and we used that really as collateral to the bank. So we kept in contact with our bank, and I think that's important for entrepreneurs now, just to keep your bank informed, sort of thing. And we'd say to our bank, listen, we need some more overdraft for the next 3 months because it's low season, but here's the sort of promises and confirmation that we're going to get paid on these dates. and they took that as being reasonable sort of thing, and they were very good with us.
And a lot of businesses that work in in that space into other supermarkets. I shouldn't say specific names, but it's not just supermarkets. Other businesses where it's 90 days, they have to do things like factoring in a lot of cases for cash flow, which then takes away some of the profitability, because you're going to have to pay for the cost of the money during that period of time, even if it's only 90 days.
You're spot on, Lee, and the problem with the multiples is that there isn't the margin to take out of the product when you're selling 40,000 pots a week. The margin's tight anyway. But interesting, I was speaking to one of their businesses I'm working with upstairs, and they're talking about blockchain type management for the multiples, where you literally get paid as soon as the supermarkets sell the product. The sort of blockchain technology, and I don't know enough about it, so apologies there, have ability, once that product is sold in the supermarket, that the actual supplier gets paid as soon as it's sold.
So it saves all this.
If something like that can be done, that will be wonderful, because it really is tight, and lots of businesses that I know supply multiples.
I think the biggest problem is a lot of times the risk is on the supplier, isn't it? So, they're having to wait for the sales. They don't get paid unless it sells. They don't get paid for wastage in a lot of cases. So if it's thrown away, because it's out of date, they don't get paid for that. So it is a real, risk for the supplier in a lot of cases. So what happened then after your, couple of years there, 3 years?
So I left Langage Farm in 2010. And I went and worked for Plymouth University, and I did that for the next 9 years. So I ran some innovation centres in Cornwall.
So similar to what you're doing here today, you did down in the southwest.
Exactly. So we built an innovation centre in Cambourne, very close to the old School of Mines, very close to on the campus of Cornwall College. We opened that in 2010. As a brand new building to Cornwall, and it was really successful. We had some good businesses sort of come out of Cornwall, and interestingly, we had lots of technology businesses and software developers who came from the likes of Reading and London for a couple of reasons. That they could entice staff to come and live and enjoy the Cornish lifestyle. Property's still reasonably priced in the non sort of seaside towns there, and B, cost of wages unfortunately were less in Cornwall than they were in London, sometimes half. And the cost of accommodation, so office space, was again half what it was in London. So they had real competitive advantage by being in Cornwall. So we had some good business. It was the second sort of biggest technology growing cluster in the UK at one stage.
It seems to be a magnet for systems analysts and architects as well, because I know at least 2 system architects who've migrated from London or other areas down into Cornwall, because all of them are working remotely these days. So they've got a home office in Cornwall and just do everything remotely predominantly at the time. But again, it's a nicer place to live, they're saying. So, but I'm not sure whether the locals like that, because it's pushing up the cost of housing, isn't it, in these areas, which then makes it difficult for locals, especially ones that are have got lower incomes.
I think that's a good point. Everyone was very anti sort of the innovation centres going up in Cornwall. It was they didn't want sort of people coming up from sort of a country. They didn't want new businesses coming into Cornwall. But in the end, when they saw that there was 300, 400 jobs created quite quickly there, and they're all spending money in Cornwall. The local spa shop, the local pub, the local pasty shop were pleased that we were there, sort of thing. And it was interesting, sort of, when you get to Redruth and Cambourne, you need a translator normally. They could just about understand what I was saying there, I think, sort of thing. But I got by, and I loved it down there. It was great, sort of thing.
So 9 years on, what happened at that point then?
I got a call from a gentleman called Professor Julian Beer, who's the Deputy Vice Chancellor here at Birmingham City University, just saying that he'd opened a new something called a Steamhouse. So I came down and had a look at it, and I was gobsmacked, really. Firstly, with the university, it was tucked away in Perry Bar, and not a wonderful campus, and suddenly this new campus in the east side of Birmingham's been born, and it's just a great university, 30,000 students, of which 70% of our students live in the Birmingham commute area.
Yeah.
So we brand ourselves at the university for Birmingham. Lots of universities, you could pick them up and put them anywhere in the UK and they do pretty well, but we're very different here. We're Birmingham centric, and lots of first generation sort of families coming to university. So I just love the ethos of the university. They were hugely into entrepreneurship and working with the business community. So I joined in 2019 and went full circle, really. Went back and sort of in the week I'm living at my mum's house back in Longmoor Road, Shirley sort of thing. My mum's in her 80s now and drives me potty as I drive her potty sort of thing. But it's great to be back in Brum. I've been away since, the year 2000, and the changes here are magnificent.
It kind of been easy point starting then, because you got into 2019, and then towards the end of that and beginning of 2020 is when we had all the COVID situation appear. So how did that affect you personally? How did it affect the job as well?
Yeah, I mean, we took basically from November 2019 to March 2020 to open the incubator at Millennium Point. We had to completely re-kit it out and get all the systems in place and get all the support there. We opened on the 2nd of March to close 2 weeks later because of COVID, and not start again. I think it was a kiss of death. Not start again until September, October 2020. So that was a real learning curve. We had some good businesses who started with us, and they were very loyal to us. We put lots of stuff online now. We'd had weekly workshops. We got support from lots of intermediaries, a solicitor, an accountant, a bank who did lots of one-to-one sort of Teams calls with our clients. And it probably worked in our advantage eventually for Steamhouse itself, which we'll probably talk about in a second, because the whole ethos of business has changed a lot now. People are working remotely and don't want sort of to take sort of long leases on premises. So we're offering really flexible sort of accommodation here at Steamhouse and that sort of stuff. So in a way, whilst it was really tough, and I know our students really suffered not being in, for Steamhouse, it probably paved the way for what the Steamhouse was trying to do.
Yeah, because I think it's been a big challenge for most of us. Things have happened during that time. The working from home, worked for some people, didn't work for others. It all depended on what you did as well. Some things you could not work from home. You couldn't work from home as a bus driver. Or a HGV delivery driver. So there are certain people out in the community still doing what they did before, but were challenged by the conditions. There are people working from home that had never worked from home before, so they haven't got that ethos of working from home. Technology was a challenge for a lot of people as well, because they didn't have the technology in place to be able to communicate effectively with people. So it was a big challenge for a lot of people. I think we've done quite well in the end, but it's a big challenge for a lot of organizations. And I think it's also then changed behavioral patterns as well, because people aren't looking to go straight back into workplace if they can help it, because a lot of people have found that they can actually work around the family and things, especially women who work maybe part-time jobs and things. It's worked much better for them to be at home, so they can actually work around the children and things, rather than going back into the workplace and getting childcare in and things like that. But in reality, it doesn't really matter whether you're a man or a woman. The children need to be looked after. It doesn't matter who it is who does it. But I think it has changed people's perception about what work is. And I think that's going to be affecting things, for the future. I know there's a big drive from both the government and some of the key industries to try and get people to go back to the office, but I don't think it's happening as quickly as people want it to happen. So coming on to Steamhouse itself, so we're in the new Steamhouse, which opened officially, was it first week in May? But we had a warm start the week before, wasn't it? I think we came the 27th of April to give it a try. So we're residents here. Well, when I say we, I am. I'm encouraging other people from the business to come and spend more time here, but at the moment it's just myself. But tell us what Steamhouse is about, and what does Steam stand for? Is there a particular thing in that, because it's capitalised, isn't it, in the actual name?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think of back a step, the university, Birmingham City University, 30,000 students, 70% from the Birmingham area, from very entrepreneurial backgrounds, the city of 1,000 trades. And when you look at the Birmingham coat of arms, it's the artist and the engineer.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what STEAM is. It's taking science, technology, engineering and maths, and then throwing the artist in the middle, throwing the creativity, the artistry, because every business, however technical they are, need that creativity and need the artist. So that's what Steamhouse is about. It's about taking technical businesses and connecting them with more creative businesses, technical students and graduates and academics, and connecting them with those from perhaps scientific and technical backgrounds and artistry. So that's what the Steamhouse is. So it's a £70 million investment by the university, 120,000 square feet. It's an old bicycle factory frontage going back to 1899, and then a new 5-story building at the back of that. So what we're trying to do is, as I said, combine students and graduates with businesses, simple as that, where they collaborate and come up with some magic. So the building has teaching. We have 8 sort of large teaching rooms for 100-degree students in each room.
And that's where we are at the moment, one of the teaching rooms. So you should be able to see behind us lots of desks and things, lighting, soundproofing above, and some very large screens. And they're also in front of us here. So it can be used as one big room, or it can be segregated into smaller rooms as well, to be as teaching. But there are 8 of them in total in the building.
And if you look around the teaching rooms, it's very different from standard university fare, whereas, lots of universities have a professor or a lecturer standing on a lectern with 150 slides a session. This is about several academics being in the room, but solving problems and finding solutions for problems that businesses have. So businesses within the Steamhouse, and then local businesses, local organisations set challenges, and students come up with solutions to those challenges and learn sort of their degree from that.
Yeah.
So we've got capacity for another 800 to 900 students here in the Steamhouse. Alongside that, we've got an artist studio. We've got a prototyping space where we have 6 technicians who specialise in woodworking, metalworking, print, fabrics, and 3D printing.
Yeah, I can say there's 3D printing in multiple materials as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
so
one of the biggest 3D
prototyping.
Yeah, one of the biggest 3D print farms in the UK. And as you say, it's all about fast prototyping. So when you think of the university, we've got students and graduates who are potentially looking to start a business. So we've just started a program in June called the Steamhouse Hatchery, where we're giving them a 10-week program on sort of taking their idea and then sort of innovating, and then doing a business model canvas, learning about sort of finance and balance sheets and profit and loss and cash flow. Then we're sort of arming them with marketing and sales strategies. And they come up with the business plan, which they submit. And then we've got some prize funding and space in our incubator where we can support them. They can also use the prototyping facilities. Lots of small businesses fail because they never get to prototype stage.
Yeah.
So they can do that sort of hand in hand here. So we've got 50 students currently going through that program. And then we've got a pre-incubator, which is at Millennium Point, where we'll continue to support the students going forward. We've also got the incubator stroke accelerator, where we've got 66 desks, of which 50 are already taken, where we've got experienced entrepreneurs such as yourself, Lee, and more startup businesses sort of working from there. And that dynamic works really well because we've all got different skill sets. You've got yourself, who's well networked, technically can support the younger businesses, but they can do some stuff that we're not used to, all the TikTok stuff and different social medias. So a mixture of non-graduate businesses and graduate businesses and less experienced and more experienced businesses really works well. So we've got the incubator accelerator spice, and then at the end of this year we'll be building some sort of office, some private office space for these businesses to grow into as they sort of scale up.
Well, say if you want to learn more about what's happening here at Steamhouse, there's Richard's LinkedIn details, but also if you look for Steamhouse Birmingham, you'll find the website, so you can actually go and request information. Come and have a look around. The facilities are amazing. I think once you've walked around the place and seen what's here, it gives you a very different view of what universities can do. Integrating with businesses, because a lot of universities don't have a good reputation, for working closely with businesses. I've seen it work really well with Aston. I've done quite a lot of work with Aston, the Advanced Services Group over there. But this is going to really work, I think. It's an amazing facility. So make sure you go and have a look at those things. Anything else you'd like to finish on Steamhouse itself?
As you said, Lee, we have something called a challenge lab, where we get businesses who've got a problem they may need a solution to. It could be a new app, it could be some type of product development, and we run perhaps a 5-day challenge or a 2-week challenge where we get students, academics and business all together in the room, and we hopefully come up with some solutions to a problem or to perhaps a new product there or service they're trying to develop. So if anyone has got something they're looking to develop and would like some expertise, we'd be delighted to hear from them. Love to do tours of the place. As you said, it's like something. It's the type of place you need to come in and sort of have a look round and understand the vibes to see what we're trying to do here. But I think it's something that's really unique. And looking at this hatchery where we've got these 50 new entrepreneurs, looking at how people like yourself, Lee, and the other more experienced businesses have really supported the younger businesses here. I just think it's a concept, and we're learning every day. For example, we weren't going to put private office space in, but as businesses grow, some people are under non-disclosure, some people can't work in an open environment, so we're looking to put 5 or 6 offices in at the end of this week. So just encourage people to come and have a look what we've got here. The Steamhouse is there because, as you quite rightly said, universities are notoriously difficult to speak to get onto, to find the right person. When I was in sort of private business, the last organisation I think to come to for support will be a university. But there's some really interesting stuff going on here, and I think hopefully we've welcomed someone like yourself, Lee, with open arms. You've been brilliant for us with how you've helped our sort of younger student and graduate businesses, and you've sort of helped us on the networking side. So I think there's something for everyone here. There may be people out there who are looking to prototype a new product. We can help them with that. So there's lots of really exciting things. And if people want to sort of contact yourself or contact me on LinkedIn, I'd love to show anyone around here.
Yeah, so if you're interested, again, just post on the LinkedIn post that this event's in, and we can provide you with some more information and things. The other thing about the place, it's very close. It's 9-minute walk to Moore Street Station, but at the bottom of the hill here, because we're on Cardigan Street, just by BCU, we've also got the new HS2 station being built on Curzon Street. So it's a great central location for that. It's not right in the centre of town, but it's a little bit of a walk out, but it's close to local car park. We've got Millennium Point car park just across. So it's a great position, I think, as well. But again, you've got the support of the university and all the faculty there to be able to work in any areas that you might be interested in. So we're coming on to the last 2 questions, and I did prime you earlier. So so the first one is, what's the best meal you've ever had? Where was it? What was it? And why was it the best meal? And like I said earlier, it's not always what you've eaten. It's sometimes who you've eaten it with, or for what occasion it was, or just because of the view from where it was. So have you thought anything through?
I thought about that sort of thing, and it was when I first went over to Brittany. I've been over there about 3 or 4 months, and I got to know the owner of this campsite called Marcelo. And there's a coastal path, and he lived on this beautiful ex-Russian princess's house right on the coastal path. And I remember I met this girl over in France, and I quite liked her, a girl called Kay. So I said, let's walk into the local town and we'll go and have a bit of dinner sort of thing. So I was walking along, and I don't know if it's lucky or unlucky, but I trod in some dog poo sort of thing. And anyway, we were walking sort of thing.
I don't think it's a great thing to happen on a date, definitely.
But anyway, we were walking. It was about a mile down this thing, and I thought, I hope it gets a little bit better than this sort of thing. And then Marcel drove past on his little moped, and he said, aperitif and dinner, follow me. So myself and Kay went to his house in this beautiful Russian's house. We had something called assiette de fruits de mer, which is mixed seafood, and we had the nicest steak.
Fruits of the sea,
the nicest steak that you've ever had. And then he took me to his wine cellar, and he said that he only sort of had Bordeaux claret in there and something called Pomerol, which is
Pomerol's very nice.
And he had 200, 300 bottles of just Pomerol, and they were all 200 quid a bottle. And we had a bottle of this wine. So I just remember me with sitting in his house with my shoe, having trotting some dog muck, but having the most wonderful meal that I'd ever had, sort of thing. And I got to know him really well, and he looked after me brilliantly after that, sort of thing. Never saw Kay again, but not to worry, sort of thing on that.
You think it was a dog poo or your cologne?
I think it was a bit of both, to be quite honest with you. I don't think my cologne smelled much better than dog poo, to be quite honest with you. But it was just, it was one of, I think, most of the things in life that you do where you don't expect them.
Yeah.
When you think of the best
Spontaneous
barbecues you've had, the spontaneous, and we were just literally walking past. I had crappy clothes on and everything, but we went into his house, and he made us feel, and the meal was just different class. It was great.
So, second question, what's the most adventurous thing you've done?
I think probably going over to France business wise was one of them. I was only 30, but most of I was actually quite old compared to most of them are 18, 20, and just wanted sort of 6 months where they were drinking and being crazy. So that was quite bad. But I think probably, and nothing to do with work, was being a rugby referee, because I was the mouthiest, most horrible scrum half that you've ever met, and I was always abusing referees.
Yeah.
And my dad got the British Empire Medal for his services to rugby. He did 60 years at a rugby club called Camp Hill in Shirley, and he always said to me, "Rich, why don't you take up refereeing sort of thing?" And I thought, no, I'll be the world's worst. But I took it up, and I could sort of see it from the other side, really. And
poacher come gamekeeper.
That's exactly what it was, really. So from being this sort of this mouthy scrum half, I took my qualifications and got to a reasonable level, as I was doing sort of level 5 rugby, and I went down to Devon and did sort of Exmouth and Torquay and sort of one below national divisions there. But that was a big step, sort of that was, because officiating sort of any level of rugby is difficult, sort of thing, but from being that mouthy scrum half to a sort of rugby referee, that was probably one of the most challenging things I've done, sort of thing, because it was I was horrible to referees. So if there's any referees listening to this, I do apologise for my behaviour on the rugby pitch.
Yeah, I'm sure I've got to apologise to loads of people for things I've done over the years as well. So, but let's not dwell on that. But thanks ever so much for joining us today. Anybody's got any questions for Richard, stick it in the LinkedIn. I'm going to post it through again, so Rich will see it. So you'll see all the comments on there. So anything you've got to ask about Steamhouse, his past. If you're interested in starting a campsite and you want to buy a load of cheap mobile homes, again, we've got the specialist here for that as well. Also, if you want a career cleaning caravans in France and you fancy giving it a go as well, again, we've got the font of knowledge in that area as well. But yeah, I would really recommend you come and have a look around Steamhouse. A few people I know have been and had a look and been very impressed with the place, and it is starting to fill up. A lot of people joining and moving in here because it is just a great place to work from. Great people to work with, like Richard and many of the other business businesses, but the facilities are, are second to none, definitely. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. Hopefully see you again soon. We're trying to get a few more people lined up. I think we're going to have Sarah Bishop next Tuesday, hopefully. So that'll be interesting. Sarah, when I've ever spoke to her, she's never actually spent more than about 30 minutes without an expletive. So we haven't got a bleep machine. So we're going to work on how we deal with that, or just try and calm her down before we start to make sure we don't get any colourful language, should I say, next week. But hopefully you'll be able to see that. And she's got quite an interesting life, because she spends half of it in Vienna and half of it in the UK running a recruitment business. So a little bit different. And so hopefully we'll get her lined up for next Tuesday. And we've got a few other people, planned for the future as well. But thanks ever so much for joining us today, and hopefully see you soon. Thank you.
Cheers.